And we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead. Oh, here we go. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks everyone. So I'm going to call this meeting to order of our public work session on this Tuesday, August 19th at 5:01 p.m. All right, I don't think we have anyone here to do public comments, so no public comments. We'll move on to our business, which is our meeting today with administrative assistants to talk about our strategic planning. So I will officially turn it over to you all.
Well, thank you for meeting with us. We're excited about the work that's been completed to this point, but more excited about getting here and meeting with your folks and spending some time getting to understand what's happening in the buildings, getting some time to understand what's happening in your community. Before we step out on that ledge, we wanted to kind of review. Carlotta spent a great deal of time meeting with you, going over some survey results. I want to spend some time talking about that this evening. And then we're going to kind of go over our schedule about how we'll be out and about in the community. Our goal is for you to be somewhere a month from now and somebody say, yeah, we saw Carlotta and Rob at this place or at this location. We feel that it's vitally important for people to be comfortable with the work that we're doing because we see it as a very important document that you are creating. We tell you how important it is. Just this past week, Carlotta and I were approached about doing another strategic plan for a school corporation just outside of Indianapolis who is facing a $15 million loss. We said no to that and said we want to stay here where things are positive and good, and they are. I'm driving down from Fort Wayne, and so I don't understand the highways and byways yet. But I come into your town and I see soccer getting ready to start. I make the turn and children are on bicycles. I come by the little park down here, Meadows. Yeah. Cross country practices there. Kids are out messing around. And sometimes as board members and community members, you don't take time to notice those types of things. Those are the things that will keep your people here and attract new ones, as well as what you do in this school corporation. So I would like to read to you. I apologize for that, but I would like my words to resonate, and then I'm going to hand out what I've read to you. We've taken the data from the surveys. We've taken the information from the time you spent with Carlotta, and we've come up with some major themes. In these major themes, if two or more board members mentioned and it became a talking point or we saw it highlighted in the survey, we tried to incorporate it into these themes. Our intent is then to take these themes, not as written for you, but to take these themes into your community, to get feedback on those, to understand if there are things that maybe we need to be bringing back to you that are themes in the community that maybe not. I'm going to say right now, I think you have nailed the themes for a school corporation in 2025 in rural Indiana. So if you'll just allow me, and I've written it in really your voice. Our reputation is built on a foundation of academic excellence, and we are committed to ensuring that that legacy thrives. We are committed to fostering a culture of rigorous instruction and guaranteeing a consistent, high-quality curriculum across all schools, grade levels, and departments. By providing our educators with the best resources and professional development, we will ensure every student is engaged, challenged, and prepared for future success. And we've identified that theme as ensuring academic excellence and innovation. The second theme, investing in our children. We believe that academic achievement is linked to student well-being. This theme centers on our commitment to educating for lifelong success by building a comprehensive mental, social, and emotional support system. Our goal is to ensure every student has the resources they need to thrive, making our schools a safe and supportive environment that enhances learning and reinforces our district's value to the community. And we've identified that as investing in our children. Third, empowering our educators. And we're intentional in using the words educators because any adult that stands in front of your children is an educator. That could be the school bus driver, that could be the cafeteria worker, that could be a coach. And so when we use this term educator, we're just not speaking to teachers. And yes, that would even include a superintendent. We recognize that exceptional educators are at the heart of our district's success. This theme is dedicated to making Yorktown the premier district for educators to build a career. Our focus is on providing competitive compensation and creating meaningful opportunities for teacher growth and fulfillment, while building a robust educator pipeline through strategic relationships across the state and the Midwest. And I would love to, as we get into our discussion, come back and address that and trends that we're now seeing across the state of Indiana in terms of teacher recruitment. And we've entitled that Empowering Our Educators. There are 27 of these, so no, I'm joking. 3 more. Protecting our position as a district of choice. Our district's history of enrollment growth is a direct result of our commitment to academic excellence. We recognize that statewide demographic shifts and competition require an initiative-taking strategy. This theme focuses on protecting and enhancing our reputation to ensure Yorktown remains a premier destination for families, thereby safeguarding our enrollment and community vitality. Securing our financial future. If you're aboard in 2025 in the state of Indiana and you're not thinking about this particular theme, you're going to be in that $15 million reduction phase. And so I congratulate you on being proactive, but this is the tough piece. We must create within our significant constraints of Indiana's school funding formula and property tax caps. This theme commits us to developing a proactive, long-term financial plan that ensures stability and protects our standards of excellence. This includes a thorough exploration of the use of our reserves, all potential revenue-generating options, including a voter-approved operating referendum for staffing and programming, and a capital referenda for any future facility needs. And we've identified that as securing our financial future. And the last, fostering community connection and public trust. A strong school district is built on a strong partnership with its community. This theme prioritizes strengthening the relationships through a commitment to proactive communication and complete transparency. Our goal is to build deeper, more meaningful engagement with all stakeholders parents, staff, and community members to ensure our decisions reflect our shared values and earn the public's trust. I'm sure you've heard this statistic, and I don't know if it's been tested recently. Probably a little less true in rural communities, as it might be a little skewed. But at any one school district across the state of Indiana, only 20% of your population, your school district encompasses, has a connection to your schools. Maybe a little deeper in a rural community, but connecting to your community many times happens if they're coming to the football game, your volleyball game, and using those vehicles as a way to inform a community when you have their attention. We want to talk a little bit about that as well. From that, these core values. Again, collecting the data from you. Again, we could have gotten these wrong, but we think success collectively for this group is a core value, centering decisions on student outcomes and academic excellence. Another core value is leadership, investing in teacher and leader development. A third core value is community, building trust and inclusive engagement. A fourth, learning, prioritizing rigor and growth. Responsibility, strategic financial stewardship and planning. And responsiveness, willingness to face challenges head on with data-driven decisions. Again, 2 or more is how we tried to sift this list down. Top threats. Enrollment. And that's a threat for every school district across the state of Indiana. We did this right at the time where your kindergarten numbers were being processed. So we don't know if this was an outlier, but we don't think so because everyone mentioned that fact. Student mental health needs, teacher burnout and competition for talent we think is a threat to your district. Facility, ability, and space limitations we think is a threat to your district. And resistance to or fatigue from ongoing change. So we'd like to talk about those themes, but before we do, we'd like to share our next steps and then use the next 30 minutes to really dive into those themes.
Sounds good. And you heard this, and you'll also be able to see it in a moment. Along the same lines, then kind of what's next. So we know in talking with you all, and then also in our summary, that a strong school district needs a strong community, which you have. You have an incredible community. It's one of the biggest successes that came up. So we want to make sure that these priorities that we identify and that we get feedback on reflect what everyone cares about. And so our next steps in talking with you and getting your ideas too is extend this conversation. So I'll share a handout with you in a moment, but the headline is really Join the Conversation campaign, right? So we kind of want to do that. Our goal would be to get diverse voices, to throw a wide net, to get voices of individuals that maybe aren't coming to football games, voices of individuals, of transfer students, of working parents, of grandparents, of empty nesters, just a wide variety of voices. Why that matters is we want everyone to be a part of this plan. So our next steps in this, and we're going to need to fine tune some of this. I want to get your feedback tonight. How we're going to do it is the first step would be staff voice, right? So everyone that I spoke to talked about the excellent staff. Almost everyone mentioned some staff member in a building or in the community that's really making a huge impact. So we want to get their voice involved too. So we want to work with the school leadership to get into the buildings, but we want it to be chill, right? We want it to be a join the conversation. We want it to be Your Voice Matters. And so we're imagining something, on a Friday afternoon, going into the teacher's lounge, being there with some dot voting or a list of priorities, clipboards, a
Treats.
handout. Yeah, that
Lots of
food.
treats.
Yeah, right. And just inviting people to give, their perspective and their input, not taking them away, not putting something extra on them. And then also making sure that we have a way for those individuals that can't, pop into the teacher's lounge to see us too. What we like about that is it's kind of a low pressure opportunity for staff to engage and also feel like their voice is heard. In addition to that, the community, right? The community voice. So in one of the interviews, really good idea of thinking about the community. I echo Rob's thoughts. For those of you who got here a little bit later, I drove in and, I drive all over the state. I was in Greenwood today, in Pendleton, and I don't remember where I was, but I was all over. I'll be in Oxford tomorrow. And there was something about driving into Yorktown that was just really beautiful. It was nostalgic. It was the cornfields. I was like, I could do this drive every day. I was just really, and to Rob's point, you're driving into a small town. Maybe it's because I spent a lot of time in Indy driving around too. I'm not sure, but it had a special feel. Like you knew you were driving into someplace special. And so with that, we also want to make sure that all the members of this community have a way to engage. And not everyone's going to want to do a survey online, right? Even for a lot of you, I think you preferred to talk to me. So we're going to do a postcard mailing. So at least that throws a wide net for everybody. We'll do your zip code and figure that out. But anybody that wants to participate can. And also, though, on that postcard, to differentiate too, there'll be a QR code with my new best friend back here. He's gonna where they can scan and go online if they want. Right. So again, lots of different options there. So we will do a postcard with some proposed strategic priorities where people can give input and really invite them, to join the conversation. And that ensures every household really has a tangible way to take part in this. And again, reducing reliance just on digital outreach or individuals we're all running into at the same places. I'll probably go to the Starbucks. I'll go to the grocery store. There's a couple of little spots, I'm going to go where the people are going,
Osborne's.
There you go.
We don't have a grocery store. And we
Twisters.
You guys don't have
Coffee shop.
Coffee
Right
crazy.
Yeah, well, that's true. Okay, it's not called Starbucks. You're right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. What is your coffee shop
Coffee
called
Cravings.
now?
Coffee crazy.
Coffee. It's changed names quite a few times since I've been here.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The over 60 demo you'll find at Osborne's. Little.
Yeah,
Every town's
okay.
got a little corner
Yeah,
cafe. And
Osborne's. I used to see it there actually.
Oh, yeah, it is.
hasn't changed names, has it?
Nope.
I was gonna really shoot for the Dairy Queen, but that's a sad story. So no.
Osborne's. Is,
Osborne's. Okay, good.
Yeah. Maybe
Whatever.
Fort A. Ray.
So-
Fort A. Ray will get a
Yeah.
different demo in there. So.
Okay. Yeah. This is very helpful. Thank you.
Mouse Friday night.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Okay.
The mouse Friday night.
The mouse. I know.
That might be yet
Yeah.
another demographic.
Okay, yeah,
Absolutely.
we want to be very inclusive. There used to be a donut shop. Is there a donut shop
It
anymore?
closed down.
Yeah,
We've got
donut
a
shops are a
couple
great
different-
place.
We had their
All
own
the
corner.
farmers are always in there talking. Like donut shops are really good.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll figure that out. But again, the community piece is kind of where I wanted to head on that. And then also local partnerships, right? Community partnerships, organization outreach, churches, kind of that same concept. We've gotten some of the contact information, getting that one-page priority, get in front of those groups, whether it be the Kiwanis, getting some information more from you all on who that should be. And just a way to collect some feedback so we have that wide variety of voices. We want people, it could also sports centers, youth sports folks, these coaches. We want bus transportation. We really want a wide variety there. I know there are some after school clubs. And so the piece that I'm still working on that I don't have on here, but also want to name, we're also going to get some student voice, but we got to, make the wording age appropriate for the audience. And I want to work with the school leaders on that. And also kind of want to make sure that we've thought of all the community members you all have. But that is our thinking right now. That is our approach to getting community voice. And we're going to be calling it Join the Conversation campaign, and it's kind of just keeping it simple. And then we can also imagine there's people that are busy, that are working and running 18 different places. So also holding an evening at the auditorium or something, holding a space where people can just come in quickly and give us some feedback and, again, say hello, say goodbye, but they have a physical place to come in, and there'll be a spot for them to add some additional, qualitative comments if they want. But that's our current thinking. I can also imagine I'll show up at a football game or something because,
Sounds good.
We
yeah.
would like free swag. I'm not above asking for that.
Yeah, I still
We can
have
make
some,
that
but it's
happen.
mine's kind of worn.
We can make that happen.
Yeah.
How wide do you think that window will be, that period of time?
So we see ourselves entering the school within the next couple weeks.
I think
Okay.
Thursday's one this way. I
And
think there's a
our
protocol.
deliverable to
I'm not
you,
following.
Tom, is a reading in November.
Okay.
And so probably September, October is that time frame.
Okay.
And back to the student thing, really engaging with the student council groups, working with the school leadership.
I mentioned, I just wrote down a note for Vicki. She's many things, but she's also engaged with the ag community. So, we're
You could have caught him last night at the town hall meeting.
yeah, and we've talked about this for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know how unique that makes us, but there's some blue collar in Yorktown.
Thank you.
There's an ag community. There's white collar. There's and there's that old Yorktown, new Yorktown vibe. Not only going on within the school district, but also within the town as a whole. Of there's a lot of folks that would like to see us Yorktown be Mayberry forever and ever, and then there's a lot of folks who would like to see us be something like, thank you, like maybe like Mount Vernon, or not Mount Vernon. What am I missing? What's the little town in Mount Vernon?
Fortville?
Thank you, Fortville. That sort of still has that small town feel, but is a little bit more metropolitan too. So anyway.
So themes, if you'll look at that, ensuring academic excellence and innovation. Were we off base? Were we hitting thoughts that you had in regards to themes for this district?
Well, if I wanted to add a word as we were wordsmithing and investing in our children, I also wanted to name the physical, right? These physical resources that we talked about. And I don't think that word made that in there, but I will update that.
Yeah.
Because we did hear a lot about, the physical opportunities that our students are having through academics, not only academics, but athletics. And especially the investments that's been made in the facilities for students to have physical clubs, physical sports. So I just want to make sure that word physical gets put back in here. That's the only thing I changed there.
Any feedback on that first, ensuring academic excellence and innovation? Do you see yourselves as innovators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Jason, kind of.
I think I think at Yorktown it starts with that, right? Ensuring academic excellence. I think that's what sort of built the foundation on. I don't know if we're innovative. I really don't. I don't know how to quantify that. I think we should be, whether we currently are or not in comparison to other similar sized schools, I couldn't say. But I think we should be.
I think when we come back to you with a draft, your community will probably let us know if they feel like you're innovative or not. And I think that could be a lot of things. It could be on how you stack your curriculum. It could be on how you bring educators into your school district. It could be technology. It could be unique partnerships throughout the area. It could be a number of different things. And so we'll sort through that.
Could be an aspirational goal too, that if it's not currently perceived that way, could be more aspirational.
Good push.
When we get down to securing financial future, I think you're going to need to think about innovation. investing in our children, and Carlotta is right, and I authored that, so it was never my intent to leave out the physical component. I believe grit and the growth mindset are not only taught in the classroom, but probably more often than not are taught in those co-curricular and extracurricular activities that you have. If I'm addressing a community group and they're wanting a workforce, they're going to come up and ask me about my ag program and FFA. And what I will tell them is, we're running out of ag kids. And so how do you use those other activities, whether it's athletics or band, those pieces where it takes discipline, it takes a growth mindset. How are you using those and investing in your children? And when you do, and you do it with vitality, you are addressing those future skill sets that they're going to need to be successful. In that, you live in a world of social media and digital connection. And having our children navigate through that is very difficult. Having adults and parents navigate through that. So there is a social and emotional piece that is woven through that.
That came up also, just to kind of stamp that, Rob, that came up in at least 3 of the interviews, just the need for the caregivers and the parents to have access to digital support.
Empowering educators. Can I ask your teacher pipeline? Are most of your teachers come through Ball State?
Yeah, but not directly to us typically.
Yeah. They go to another school district, opening, transfer in. Yeah. I would ask us, as we're developing this, to think about that pipeline. The quality of young people entering the teaching profession is dwindling.
Yeah.
And so how you cast your net to get the best and brightest, maybe to look beyond where you typically had your teachers come from, and be thinking about, do we need to invest time in teacher recruitment as other school districts across the state are? And if you're not at that table thinking that your reputation will walk them through the door, and they're negotiating with math teachers on the spot, I think that's something that you may be missing. So right now, when you started school, did you have every academic area filled?
Yes, we did.
How close?
What do you mean, how close? Like when
Like you
hired
had
the
your last
one?
teacher to walk in.
Well, I might have bragged at the July board meeting that we were full, and then we had 2 resignations that week, which were filled the next week.
Yeah. So that's,
Well, actually, we only filled one of them. We absorbed one of the resignations.
so that is a great place to be.
Yeah. And that's been true, I think 4 years in a row, but maybe 5, and all fully licensed too. No
That's really
emergency
amazing.
permits.
That's rare.
Yeah, that is rare.
Are we still the highest in East Central Indiana? So for some, that
Salary.
probably drives some of that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, for first year.
For starting.
Yeah.
Yeah. beginning.
So going back to your question on innovation, like, how do you ask those questions? Because I think I have an idea what innovation means. I just looked at the definition to make sure I'm clear exactly.
Yeah.
But like, people interpret that differently. You could probably get more granular. Are we innovative on hiring practices, or are we innovative? I just relate that to technology to some extent. So maybe depending on how you ask that question, you get different answers. I think there's some things, to Jason's point, that we're innovative in. I think there's other things we're not. As a whole, are you? That's really hard to answer. Obviously, that's a goal in different areas, but are we, using new tactics to get things done? Maybe, maybe not. So I think that'd be interesting how you ask that question, different people and how they respond. But I don't know how granular you get. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to say, yeah, we are, but I'm like, some things we are, and
Yeah.
it's pretty broad.
Yeah. So when you some people will see it with that device, and it's much more than that device.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
I
was
mean,
looking at it
I'm
more
sorry.
like, just like our graduation, like our different pathways that we offer or
Curriculum.
curriculum that, classes that are offered.
Yeah, I think of it, and it is much broader than that. I think more from a curriculum standpoint, like, literal things are like robotics, or, how broad is your curriculum in the sciences and some of the other areas.
And what you
foreign
offer
language, things like that,
for extracurricular too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's innovation in every one of your themes. And when we get to protecting your position as a district of choice, I think that ability to differentiate yourself from your neighbors. In 2017, you had a bump in growth. I don't know if you know that. But in 2017, you had a 13% bump in growth. And your controlled position on enrollment, your other neighbors that bordered Muncie also had the same bump. And their bump was greater than your 13%. Now then, we're at a different field, at a different time. All of those Muncie people have made their decisions about where to go. How are you going to continue to differentiate yourself so that people will move here, stay here?
Isn't there, I get the move here and stay here, but at some point, and Dr. Henschel has elaborated on this a few times, like, you've received as many kids from Muncie as you were going to probably receive. And the way that we have our school now designed or set up is 9 classes in our K through 5 building. It has to stop at some, like, there's people, like, I have my best friends that moved here from Carmel. It was too big for them. They wanted to come here. And so I think that sometimes, we see this dollar sign that's attached to per child and how that affects our school district, but there's also the value in staying a certain size. Like, I don't know. I'm just tired of it's like the only way for success is for you just to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that there's at some point it's like invest in what you have and just stay where you're at, like as in population wise. We're experiencing this with the town even. We're not everybody wants to live in Westfield or Carmel or Noblesville. And so in order to, how do you become an innovative town or a new town that's growing and prospering, but not expanding to the point that we have tons of people here that we don't know what to do with them.
It's a little like franchising in a way of how do you keep the secret sauce, the magic of your mom and pop restaurant. When Scotty's blew up from being a Muncie campus-based franchise, eventually they outgrew that, and they got to the point where their franchise model didn't work anymore. You couldn't walk into a Scotty's in one community and have it be the same experience. And so I hear what you're saying. I think the goal is how do you find that sweet spot of you still have all of the things that make you special without, but you still have potential for growth and to get big. The truth is you're right. There is a dollar on every backpack that walks through the door, every new one especially. And with every new one, hopefully comes more innovation, more ability to offer greater curriculum, and again, it's finding the right balance, right?
Yeah, I believe it is the question for the entire state of Indiana. Those that aren't growing, and I think there's only 8 communities in the state of Indiana that are actually growing now. And you've seen your growth kind of tailor off to, and so.
And how many of those are in Hamilton County?
I think 5 of the 8. Yeah. And that you're exactly right. And I think that's the heart of why you're creating this strategic plan, because the state has said dollars are going to follow those children, and your percentage increases, as you know, are connected into your state formula. And so there are other ways, but those carry a different price tag. But I think that's why you've brought Carlotta and I into the community to help help you see what the community is saying and make those decisions based upon the best information that we can bring you. Create that long-term vision of where you want to go, and address exactly what you've done. How do you keep this location to be a destination, but at the same time, if this is everyone's destination, how are you able to keep that culture? So.
And I think honestly, the board did that not as formally as what you're talking about here 8 years ago, and Tom's the only one. He's the last man standing from that board. But the philosophy was exactly what Vicki articulated. Our peak is 3,000.
Yeah.
And so all the build out, all the programming, all the staffing has been targeted to that. Well, now we're at the point of where we're constrained by that decision. And so it probably does behoove us to go back and evaluate what does that philosophy look like going forward, and how do you manage that, knowing, man, there's a geographic constraint, a demographic constraint, and the state is constantly giving you new fiscal constraints. I mean, it'd be great to say, well, let's take the number up to 3,500. Well, then you have a fiscal challenge to try to build out for that. You might be able to fill it with transfer students, but then the people who live in the district have to pay for it. And with some of the constraints that the legislature adjusts frequently, you wouldn't be able to pay for it. So,
yeah, again, it is the puzzle for the state of Indiana to figure that out. And
Well, when your school is in the most, it's weird to call a red state a progressive state, but progressive in terms of school choice. Indiana is the leader of the pack in terms of school choice now, and there are zero barriers now, right? You can make $500,000 as a family of four and get your voucher and go wherever you want to go. And I hear other board members around the state that bristle every time, and I'm like, you have to focus on being the school of choice within your community, whatever that means, and at whatever means that you need to, so that if people have a choice, they choose you. That at the end of the day, and all of these things in my mind all tie into it. Of how do you become that school of choice?
I'm going to keep us moving,
Please.
because I would like to give you more than 3 minutes before this in your next board meeting. And so that comes to securing that financial future and having that discussion with your community and what that means. I'd be remiss if I did not say the word referenda as an opportunity for a community to evaluate and see if that's the right fit for the community. And it's not by coincidence that the last one was community engagement. Because if you're going to go down that path, the transparency that's needed, the communication that's needed, not to win a referenda, but decide if that's the right process for our community at this time. I put in capital referenda as well, because if you want to walk down that path of expanding that number to 35, your facilities would need to be addressed. And would you want that long-term investment with a capital referenda? I think it's also thinking about the reserves that you do have and how you are going to manage those. And so we'll be bringing back information that I think will help you make some informed decisions in regards to the exploration of any and all of those ideas. I think also thinking about the innovative relationships that you have within your community in regards to your facilities use, the things that you offer a community of this size that for private investment may not be an opportunity, but you could use your facility, partner with private investors with the idea of generating income. If you do that, I don't know who your district attorney is, but I think starting to lay the groundwork on some of that. Because are you the largest employer?
In the district, yes. In the county, no.
No, okay.
I mean, I think we're in the top 10.
Yeah.
All-state would probably be one.
All-state,
Oh, yeah.
hospital.
Yeah, hospitals, and that's also troublesome. You have all state, but if your hospital and your school corporation are the largest employer, which also gets us to tax cap discussions and your bonding capacity and where all that's going, and we're not going to try to cover that tonight, but when those are your largest employers, it makes that referenda discussion tough as well. So the core values we think are echoed in those themes. Any that you don't see there that you think should appear?
No.
And you can email us if there's something that catches your thought idea while you're in buildings or, talking to someone that, boy, we probably need to include that. Because we'll be speaking to those core values and seeing if we hear those echoed back to us when we're out in the district. Are there other threats that we didn't capture?
You all were the most aligned on the threats of anything.
I can't
Yeah.
think of anything else.
But again, if something pops into your
Yeah, the core values, I know we've got them up there. The word excellence always jumps out, that one. I don't know, are we changing, are we going to update our core values based on this? Are we going off of that? But either way, I like the word excellence.
Mm-hmm. Good feedback, thank you. One of the reasons we put the tagline in there, because that was a word that came up in a lot of the interviews too. So that's how that came about. And it also makes me think back to your original question, even excellence, what does that mean? What does innovation mean? I'm going to keep that thought with me as you kind of name that. I want to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think community could be maybe teamwork as well. And one of the reasons we're going through this process is I think we've recognized that we've had some disconnect on working as a team, which is a challenge at different levels. But I think that's one of the goals that probably aligns with the community. I think we've heard from community members that they feel like the school's not approachable, which I think happens probably a lot anyways. But I think the goal is to improve that piece. So probably community teamwork maybe go hand in hand at this, board level, staff level, superintendent, community all together probably. I don't feel like we function as one unit.
That came up a lot, Ryan.
I don't know if this falls under threats or not, but to Jason's point, talking about, excellence, I think a potential threat for any organization that has had sustained success and has at least a perception of being above its peers is complacency. And I don't think we're complacent, but I think the danger is when you've had sustained success, you can begin to take that for granted, and you can fall into a mode of, well, gee whiz, we're the best in our county or our conference or East Central Indiana, we're better than everybody else. And some of it probably goes back to when I think about, when I still look at iLearn scores as compared to what iStep scores used to be, and used to be able to look at iStep scores and go, wow, man, we're in the 98th percentile. Our kids are just all geniuses. And then iLearn came around and we're like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with our teachers? What happened to all of our teachers since, from fall to spring, and obviously that's not the case. it's a different measuring stick. But anyway, I just think it's a threat. You know, the biggest enemy of great is good. You know, when you're really good, it's like, hey, we're really good. You know, so pushing the envelope to make sure that we don't become complacent. And I know that's what all these things probably add up to, but I still think it's a threat. It can be easy to rest on your laurels.
I think that was why I hesitated on the innovation, like complacency, innovation, right? Like, I don't know, sometimes I wonder about that. So I agree with what you said.
And I think sometimes you become more innovative as a district because you have challenges. You know, so if you've got a lot of, you know,
Issues.
Yeah, English language learners and you know, you have a much higher, you know, poverty rate and other things, it forces you to become more innovative with your financing and more creative with, you know, how do we deal with these? And you have to innovate, because if you don't, you're going to sink. And so anyway, and on the flip side, if you look at the Beltway districts in Indy, especially in Hamilton County, they have all the resources to be innovative. They don't have any the financial challenges, and they're all excellent, but the expectation's so high and money is no object. So, you know, anything that comes along that's a really neat, unique, innovative, cutting edge, let's do it. You know, they've got resources to do it. They've got parental resources. They've got many staff members as they need to. We'll just add more staff. Let's build a new building. And so
we should bring Mr. Roush and Mr. Brown up to talk to you.
I know, and see what life's like on the other side.
Well, that's not their perspective.
That's not what they're thinking.
got
So.
there. There's some change that's happened.
We want to stay good to our promise. We got 10 minutes, I think, before your board meeting
I kind of
begins.
wanted to go back to it because I agree with Ryan. Like, we don't work well as a team, and I was hoping that through this process that because and it's not that like any one person is right or wrong. It's just maybe some other person's values or mission is completely different than another board member's values or mission or goals. And so I was hoping that through this process that you would identify what this corporation, this town, what their goals, mission, values are, and then we as a group then have to collectively pursue that or push it through. Like, it's not an individualized basis. Like, I'm not here because I want to do this, or I'm here because I'm serving this community, and we as a group are going to fulfill Dr. Henshaw's wishes based off of whatever the community is saying is needed or wanted.
Yeah, I think a successful strategic plan will do just that. And one that it feels forced will cause more heartache for the district than it will good. So, yeah, it's our hope to come back and bring you truth. And that truth is how we what do we do with that once we know and once we're informed.
Yeah, and so step one, I mean, is what we're kind of doing now, right? So this is our internal view of who we are, what's important to us as a district, what we think the priorities are, who we believe we are. Step two now is we got to go ask the community, are we on the right track? Are these the same priorities?
And values, what does the community care about, to your point?
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to stop us at 10 minutes. We went a couple more. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
If you need something, email. I don't know if you have our phone numbers, but mine 260-413-0013. And I think everyone has cards.
Yeah, just in case, 317-319-0994. And one thing I do need to get before I leave. Oh, I did say it too fast.
Yeah, sorry.
317-319-0994.
Thank you.
Will you say yours one more time?
It's Rob Hayworth, 260-413-0013.
Did everybody get mine? The ones
One more time, Carlotta.
I will. 317-319-0994. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. Everybody's like, yeah.
Our mailing addresses
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
One question I have as we head out, as a next step, who is the right person to send the school leadership an email introducing us, so I can start to reach out to them to start on this. You don't have to answer it now. You can think about it, but that would be a good
I
next
think it's
step.
that guy down at the.
Be
The
Dr.
guy on the
Dr.
end
here.
Henshaw.
Well,
Yep,
I'll
all in
be
favor?
following up with you, guy on the end.
Oh, sorry.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
We're staying on the
Thank you.
to-do list.
Yeah.
Safe travels north and south. Good evening, and we'll call this meeting to order of the Yorktown Community School Board of Trustees, and we will start if you'll join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. And welcome and happy Tuesday to you on a back-to-school August meeting. We'll start off with public comments. If anyone would like to address the board, if you would just step to the podium, state your name and address, and keep your comments less than 5 minutes if you would. Anyone in the back row? Okay. Anyone in the front row? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Board, you have the consent agenda from board docs, which includes our minutes from the last meeting, our claims report, fund report, personnel, donations. We have a couple of items in there, including a change order to our turf installation at the football field that Dr. Henshaw also explained previously in an email, a couple of student handbook updates. Any questions on anything in the consent agenda?
May I add one thing?
Please.
And that is, subsequent to the agenda going out, I did put time and materials change order in there for the football field that I want to be sure that I point out since it wasn't in there originally. And that was an earlier T&M change order for some underground electrical stuff that we did to try to make sure that we had what was in there that we wanted. So
Okay.
larger than what you would have seen if you looked at it earlier in the day.
And I will, maybe during your superintendent's closing comments, you can just talk in general about what's left, what's going on, and
Oh, sure.
Keep
Gladly.
Keep it quick though. Okay, by that time if you don't mind. Okay, board, I'd entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Jason.
Second.
Second, thank you, Ashley. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to item 4, which is the report section on your agenda. First one is the TAG grant information, which is quite a bit different this year based on new legislature. So Dr. Henshaw, you want to talk about the plan for that?
I really just want to be sure that we put this on the record, and we have already done so with the Teachers Association through discussion. And one of the outcomes of that the association has done is to basically say, if you're accustomed to getting a teacher appreciation grant, just assume that you're not going to get anything. So there still is a teacher appreciation grant. Even the one that we just left was not the original iteration, and it had changed some in terms of how the distribution worked. But this is a significantly different process. The state, the DOE, owes us guidance by September the 1st on what that will look like. As I read the summary, and I included 3 different summaries for you and the statute in there, that basically local districts will have to put together a plan and apply. So to me, that implies that there's no guarantee that your plan will be funded. You are limited to giving teacher appreciation grants to no more than 20% of your teachers. And the statute specifies those amounts, $3,500, $5,000, and $7,500. And I think it's been typical that our teachers have gotten, it's been less than $1,600 to $1,000 typically from TAG. And generally almost everyone has gotten it every year. So this represents a significant change. The chatter in superintendent world is, do you want to apply for that money? Or would it be better to not apply for it just because of some of the unknowns of how you distribute it and trying to find an equitable system? There are some requirements in there for having measurable student outcomes that you have to use to determine how you're going to distribute that money. Well, those objectively don't exist for every teaching position. Go back to the old days of the student learning objectives that the teachers in the room will be familiar with. So basically at this point, we don't have a plan for what our response is going to be to this, and have tried to put our staff on alert that, don't count on getting your $600 to $1,000 of tag that you've gotten every year over time, because it's not going to be distributed in the same way, if at all. So once we see the guidance from the state, can't remember, the distribution is scheduled for spring, and then you typically have 20 days to distribute, to pay it out to those who qualify. So we have time to decide after we get guidance from the state.
But only 20% of your staff are even eligible for it, right? So coming up with some kind of a,
So for us, that would be roughly 30 teachers would get the money.
If we did the mentor route, like, we don't have like a quote mentee mentor program as of right now. Like, would teachers
we
be
do
able-
have some identified as such through the salaries, the ECA schedule.
Teacher liaisons who work
Yeah.
with new teachers.
Is that K through 12 right now?
Every building would have somebody designated, I think. Am I right?
Okay.
And they're paid a stipend through the extracurricular schedule. That's been true for 7 or 8 years, probably.
yeah, so 2 of the 3 are mentor based.
So we'll take a look at it once we get the guidance. But again, it represents the philosophy, probably of the House Education Committee more than anything, that they want this to really be a meaningful incentive for certain things to occur, rather than just kind of a general payment to everybody.
Okay.
Board, any questions, thoughts on it?
It's getting
I
ugly.
have lots of thoughts on it.
Well, and let me just make this philosophical statement. So I think there's one side of the ledger that says maybe it's better to not take the money to avoid
I would agree.
conflict, hostility among your
Amongst your
teaching
staff.
staff. The other side of the ledger says the legislators are going to say, you left money on the table that you could have given to your teaching faculty. So we'll have to weigh that out.
It's
as
just
we
going to
move
be
forward.
really hard to differentiate, especially when you only have that many teachers that can get it.
I just hate to leave money on the table, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do.
I mean, it could cause a lot of issues amongst staff.
And in teacher world, $3,500 to $7,500 is real money.
That's a lot of money.
And
We've
so
never seen that kind of
That's,
money.
Okay, look forward to seeing
yeah.
the plan.
Sure.
Item 4B, Dr. Henshaw, is the report on our student enrollment.
I try to give you this report every August, and it was alluded to in our work session. So these numbers are preliminary. Count day got moved a few years ago to October 1st. And so these are not final numbers. Overall, we're down about 14 from our count day in 2024. And depending on how you want to slice that, all of it net is attributable to the fact that our kindergarten numbers last year were 199, and we're sitting at about 180 right now overall. And we can go through and look at the individual grade numbers. We did not take transfer applications in 7th and 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And so we had some falling off 8th to 9th. That's I think a little more than normal for us. One of the things that we also did not take transfer applications in 2nd grade, and I'll own that. I think that was a miss. Our 1st grade numbers were above 225 at the end of last year, and so we didn't anticipate that we would have any space, but just kind of the natural flow there. By not taking the transfer applications, we lost some students and we didn't have the opportunity to replace them. So that's something that I will do differently going forward, is we'll maintain a waiting list. One of the things that we wrestle with in this office is how much hope to give people who come in and want to fill out a transfer application. And if you're looking at, say, our 10th grade numbers where they're at 240, we reached the point where we said it's probably better to just not take those applications and encourage people to go elsewhere, simply because the likelihood of us having any space is small. And so where we're on the margin or we're close, we'll probably maintain a waiting list in the future more so than we did In other grades, we did take transfers and we still didn't get to the cap. But we're at that point where when you're maintaining caps for grades, again, some people come in and maybe they have 3 kids. Well, they're not going to get their sophomore in because it's full. Well, then they're not going to enroll their 8th grader or their 6th grader or whatever because they want all of them to be in the same district. So we're in that pinch point that we discussed in the work session. And of course, again, these kindergarten numbers are as low as they have been in several years. And that just happens sometimes. I'm not willing to say it's a trend for 1 year. I mean, it may just be something that happened in this particular year and you'll see some recovery. The other thing I would point out is if you look at our first grade numbers, that cohort went up by 11. And that's pretty typical for us, that generally we see some growth in those K to 5 grades every year. If we have space, you'll see some growth in those grades. So,
Any data from any of your peers in Delaware County? Have you talked to anybody else, any other superintendents of, is this kind of a Yorktown thing?
the kindergarten thing or
Yeah.
overall?
Yeah, just kindergarten.
I have heard from several other
Anybody else
people
up?
that their kindergarten numbers are down, but
Okay.
that's anecdotal. I mean, I haven't done a hard study on that. And I've heard some of the other rural districts are up in single digits or, maybe up 10, and some of the others are down. So it's mixed.
Okay.
I think I shared with Dr. Henschel the HHS report was showing the trend data coming in, like replacement rate is not keeping up with population, and we're seeing some health issues that are following through from COVID times now into probably economic also. I'm sure that
Yeah.
that wasn't a great time if you were trying to pre-plan to have a family to be bringing a child in, that we're seeing those children now enroll in kindergarten. So
We'll continue
Multitude.
to watch it. And again, we have the second count day in February, so we'll continue to look at that. And as we have space, we'll probably take some transfer applications for the second semester in the grades where we have some space.
I know you sent the email, like, is there anything we can do to project that earlier? Or instead of have a wait list, can we have like an interest list? Because I'm trying to, again, I think we talked about before.
I mean, kindergarten specific?
Kindergarten specifically, probably, or just identifying any of those shortfalls. Maybe not shortfalls, but
I would
capacity.
make the argument, and Kelly can jump in on this, that I'm not going to say perfected it, but I think we have, I mean, these numbers are not that far off from where we were in the spring.
Correct.
When I first came, it was a little harem-scarum in trying to figure that out. We used to have the same kindergarten deadline as we did for the other grades for transfers. We backed that up to April to try to get a better handle on it. I think we've done a better job of communicating to people that it's out there.
And close it at that point, or can you?
No,
Okay, it's still open.
We continue to accept those transfers up until the start of school. So I would say there's also a trend out there, again, this is anecdotal, that a lot of times, not a lot of times, but more frequently than in the past, people won't send their kids to kindergarten.
Yeah,
So they may just
we've seen that.
elect to educate them at home for kindergarten, enroll them in first grade, or try something different and use the opportunity to enroll them later.
What tactics do we use for, like, I guess attracting new students? I know there's some place that billboard. I mean, they're taking a marketing appeal to getting people in. I don't think we've done that as far as like Muncie's taking billboards and signs everywhere. But
We put signs out for
Okay.
Roundup, and then I post things on our webpage and Twitter.
Social media, communication to parents, because a lot of times they have an older kid or a cousin or whatever that's enrolled. And again, typically, if you look, we've been very close to our target. So I would just say this is an anomaly of a year. We get another year in and we'll say, okay, we've got a trend that we need to.
I don't think you can ignore it. It's a missed opportunity on revenue. Obviously, there's offsetting expenses to that, but we've got the building capacity there. It's unfortunate we can collect on, because you're right. It's like there's numbers attached to each student, and we still got the building cost, and hopefully obviously makes it better on teachers, but we also couldn't hire a couple people because of that, or maybe at least one. So
We chose not to. I mean, that was a decision that I made in consultation with Kelly and looking at enrollment numbers and what class sizes would be. But again, in response to that, if we're 45 below our cap, that roughly $8,000 per pupil, you can do the math on that.
yeah,
So
it's a big number.
Seven classes in kindergarten this year?
eight,
Eight, okay.
nine in all other grades through the elementary
Okay.
schools.
Okay, all right, thanks, Dr. Henshaw. Moving on to item 4C, which is our 26 circuit breaker projection. I mean, it's just good news after good
I was
news,
gonna
right?
say, I think we're just getting better and better. And I don't know that I normally share this number with you because this is something that we get every year, we evaluate every year. But this one is a little more frightening, maybe is the right word. And so the projection is from the Department of Local Government Finance that our circuit breaker loss is going to increase by $1 million in 2026. So up to roughly $2.5 million. And again, not to get way down in the weeds, but basically 100% of that loss has to be taken from the operations fund just because of the way that the debt service fund is protected. And so for us, we typically, Karen and I were talking about this earlier, we're typically going to have $6.5–7 million worth of revenue in the operations fund. And so in calendar year 2025, we're going to try to absorb $1.5 million of circuit breaker loss, money that in theory, if we did not have property tax caps, we would raise in that fund and would be able to expend. Well, that number, according to DLGF, is going to go up to 2.5 million. So the first question is it really going to go up to 2.5 million? We don't know. One of the things that Kara does a good job of is keeping track of what the summer projection is and then what the final number is that we get in the spring. And I went through and looked at those, and the number is about 88% accurate for us over the last 7 or 8 years. So it's close. They typically overestimate the circuit breaker, but not always. And there were a couple of years ago that their projection for us was 890,000 high. So once we got our final numbers, they actually had overestimated our circuit breaker by almost $1 million. The part of the reason I want to talk about it this year, though, is the fact that we do have this added factor of the property tax reform, which has an impact on assessed valuation. And so it's kind of an unknown. If you look at the report that I gave you, if you go almost to the second to the last line where it says projected supplemental homestead credit loss, well, that 340,000, I'm guessing, and we talked to Baker Tilly. Karen and I had a call with them after we got this, and a lot of it's conjecture on their part too. They have to ask the LGF, okay, what sort of formula did you use to calculate this? But the 340,000, the assumption here is that is some formula that they've used to multiply by all homesteads in Mount Pleasant Township in the school district to calculate that. That number, my guess is probably a real number. And that's, roughly a third of the additional loss that we have. The rest of it has to make some assumptions about what other units of government are doing, what their tax rates are doing, and some guesses about overall trends in property values. And so that's why it's only a projection. And again, if it's $1 million, some of it we would be able to backfill with increases in funding in the education fund, which can then be transferred to the operations fund up to 15%. Some of it in the fact that you're allowed to raise the levy in your operations fund by 4%. But again, when you're in a circuit breaker situation, that levy increase is then raising your circuit breaker losses. So you're not collecting 100% of the increase because you're reducing the collection through the circuit breaker. So percentage-wise, I mean, we could probably backfill a quarter of it with other new revenue that's coming through both state and local means. But again, that's still big money. So.
Is there a report, because I think that's one piece of the puzzle, right, is the credit loss. But if I run on my house, in general, assessments went up. Is there a report that shows the net impact? Because like, if you look at the math with the new reform, assessments went up drastically. So theoretically, your credit loss goes up. So if you look at that number, it looks bad. But if you look at the net, it's like, well, it's the same.
So I think the question you're asking is, okay, what does net taxable AV look like for Mount Pleasant Township, for Yorktown Community Schools? And yes, there is a number, and it's certified net AV. It is not available yet for Delaware County. It is available for some counties. Kara and I were looking today just at some other comparable places to say, did their net AV go up? And I think in most cases you looked at it did go up. So that's kind of I'm not going to say it's a fail safe, but there may be some good news in there somewhere. However, that's only answering one part of the question, because even if your AV goes up, your circuit breaker can still go up based on what you're doing with your tax rate and all those other units are doing with their tax rate. So it's a little bit of I mean, I don't know if it's a crystal ball or what it is, that somebody is trying to guess what are all the overlapping units doing. And my assumption was, before we talked to Baker Tilly, that they're doing some kind of trending. That's what a lot of times LSA will do that with some of their projections, that they'll just go back and look at what your trend has been for the last 2 or 3 years and assume that that's predicted for the future. Sometimes it is.
Yeah, I think the issue this year, and you would know this better, it's like a lot of those went up 20 or 30% on the single family. So like that number in a vacuum doesn't scare me, because I think there's a huge increase in assessment. The trending is almost irrelevant at this point. I don't know about the ag side of things, but I know single families went up drastically.
Even though like our homes went up, though, our tax bill though is much cheaper with the differentiation. What is it in the homestead credit or something? I mean, like our assessed valuation has continually matriculated and gone up, but this will be the first year that our actual tax bill is lower than what it was last year or the year before.
Yeah. Ours went down just a little. I mean, our bill went
AB
down
land went, ag land went to assessed value of, I think it was like $200 more on the acre.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this all rolls in 26.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that the assessment is occurring currently, and we'll get those numbers at some point. It's done county by county. And you said last year, for us, it was like October.
It's after we approve the budget.
So I just say that to say, again, trying to forecast into the future, and you say, okay, so what does this mean in practical terms? Well, it's all going to be operations fund specific. And so you're back to thinking about the efficiency of transportation operating. Facility maintenance and improvement are paid from their capital projects, custodial, utilities, and then central office operations. So those are the dollars that are expended out of the operations fund. And so then you figure out, okay, let's say this is the worst case scenario, and it really is $1 million more. We have roughly enough cash in our operations fund, if you kind of did status quo and assumed everything else was equal, but you had $1 million more of circuit breaker loss, that we could make it through almost all of calendar year 2026 with the cash and the revenue that we would project. So that means by my numbers, I don't think you could make it all the way through 2026. So you have to do some adjustments somewhere in 2026 to figure out how to cash flow in the operations fund through.
So net AB comes out in October?
Net AB comes out when it's done. So some counties already have it, and
Delaware County is typically
not available for Delaware County currently. So, and even then, that gives you one more piece of the information, but it doesn't give you your final circuit breaker numbers until they certify all the budgets for all the units, which will happen in the spring. So,
What's our total operations budget?
Well, the revenue is roughly, I just looked at this, it was like 6.4 million. The appropriation is almost 8 million, but there's $1.5 million circuit breaker that has to reduce the budget to that. And again, I think we're going to be in the position of where we are going to have new money in the education fund because our per pupil count, our enrollment is basically flat, and the state has raised the per pupil funding by about 2%. So we'll have some new money. And on that side of the ledger, you're going to go, oh, well, there's new money in the education fund. Why are you starving over here in the operations funds? Because it has a different funding source and it has different constraints. So it'll be interesting to try to work through that. So I'll keep you posted as we learn more.
Thank you, Dr. Henshaw, for the insight on that. Definitely important to keep our eye on that. Item D on our reports is our iLearn results.
So I give this report also every year, and I use some of the same format just so we've got some comparison. And one of the things I like to do is if you open the file that says graph, you'll see a scatter plot with a trend line in it. And I do have to give myself a cheat sheet every year to remember how to do this.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like that particular attachment, Dr. Henshaw.
But what this shows, these are all the districts sort of in what I would call greater East Central Indiana, and I could tell you what all counties it is, but it's all the counties in the eastern part of the state, kind of from Madison County and Grant County on east of the Ohio line. And I plot this with poverty rate and iLearn passing rate. And whether we like it or not, poverty rate is a well-documented predictor of performance here. And so then the trend line just shows you statistically the average school, what it predicts where you should land in your achievement based on your poverty rate. And so if you're on the line, you're kind of having an average performance. If you're below the line, you're having an above average performance. And so you can see Yorktown I would argue, if I went back and showed you from previous years, we are moving higher above the line. And in relative terms, our scores overall, so the number I took for shorthand is those passing both language arts and math aggregate in grades 3 through 8. So that's what that 37.9% is. And you can see if you went back and looked at our 24 scores, we had almost a full percentage point of gain overall. There's one district in Delaware County that is above us, and they actually had a rather large drop year over year from 24 to 25. So that's a nice way to just say, okay, in terms of the efficacy of what's going on inside of our classrooms, what does the predictive model say that we should do, and then how are we doing relative to that? So you've got that. You've got it in tabular form there if you like to see it that way. And then every year I update this little chart that says by grade, and it's got all those years in it. And then the other thing I do every year is I give you a red or a green, and red means scores went down, green means scores went up. And so in the top part of that where it's color coded, that is comparing this year's or the 25 third grade scores to the 24 third grade scores. Down at the bottom, it's by cohort. So as that group of students moves through the grade bands, is their percentage passing increasing or falling? And what I would say is, again, overall scores, Yorktown scores were up. And if you look pretty consistently at our math scores, they were also up year over year. Language arts scores typically were down, except in 6th grade And candidly, our third through fifth ELA scores were down, and in fact were below state average, which is really not typical for Yorktown, to be honest. So Mr. Thornburg and I have had some conversations about why that is. So we're in the transition between standards. We're in a transition between old iLearn and new iLearn, and we also adopted a new language arts curriculum that was implemented for the first time last year. So all those things factors. But I'll stop there and just ask if there are any questions.
Do we have a plan on 3, 4, 5 language arts?
Well, and I think I would say, I can defer to Mr. Thornburg. What I would say is part of it is that we have partially departmentalized. And so the idea is that the same teacher is teaching language arts in our upper grades there. So the idea that they are very much focused on that curriculum and those standards. I think over time, as we're using Amplify, we're going to find that we get better at it. We know what's included in the scope and sequence to use in teaching it. And so I would anticipate that we would see those scores improve. But
yeah, so I think a couple things to consider. Definitely not making any excuses. We much higher scores. We were told to do Amplify with integrity, so we did. Basically started at Unit 1, Lesson 1, and went through it. The issue we found with that was there were some standards that were going to be covered later, like April, May, that really needed to be covered much sooner. We also found out a lot of the standards were not covered well at all. So we spent all last spring basically meeting and coming up with the standards, finding out where our gaps were, finding out where the gaps were with the curriculum, also aligning it with the checkpoints, because that was the other issue we were having. So we were under checkpoints, which were the new standards, which were this year. The summative assessment was the old iLearn. And then of course Amplify was kind of a mix of, it's a national curriculum, so it's not necessarily aligned to us at all. So we have done a lot of work to where we're teaching units, they are kind of out of order, but they're going to align with checkpoints, which is going to give us better data. When we go and we got rid of some units that we taught that really, they were not Indiana standards at all. So teachers had a ton of work last year to try to prepare and be ready for that. Because really there were some times we were taking checkpoints for ELA, and they didn't even cover those standards yet because the curriculum wasn't at that point yet. So we did move things around, so we'll be able to do that. Been out in conversation with Batesville. Batesville's been year 5 of Amplify, and this past year they did move units around to align with the checkpoints, and it didn't mess with the curriculum at all. So we've been meeting and talking with them.
Is Batesville the closest school that is using Amplify?
That models after us when it comes to K2.
Okay.
And
then 3,
3,
5.
5.
3, 5.
Yeah. So Batesville has a K2 building and the 3, 5 building, and are very similar in size to us. So they each have 8 sections per grade level.
they would probably be demographically similar.
Yeah.
yeah. 30%. Yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Thornburg did a good job of somewhat explaining the fact that all these moving parts of an old iLearn summative that was still in place, but new iLearn with checkpoints, different standards. We sort of made the decision to go all in. That was a teacher-led decision, I would argue, to go all in on Amplify and go toward the new system. And so there definitely was some adjustment along the way.
So one, I think it's great to like just own and go back and say, what will we change? So we selected Amplify this because obviously the states or other schools are experiencing the same thing. Did they just not implement Amplify, or did they have a different program we should consider? I guess generally.
Yeah, so Science of Reading, they basically gave us 5 different curriculums we could choose from. Right off the bat, 2 of the 5, you weren't even allowed to order the whole entire curriculum.
Yeah.
Basically said you can order this piece of the curriculum, but you can't order this piece of the curriculum. Another one of the curriculums was basically what we were already doing, just a different name. And then the other was just a straight basal. which is very open it up, read from a manuscript and go on. So the data we saw, I know we worked close with Martinsville, a couple other schools that were seeing some growth from Amplify that weren't really using any other curriculums up until then.
This is probably an ignorant question, but like the state folks, people are at the higher average, are they using that same program, or are they like, if we're comparing ourselves with them, like why do they excel more? Were they not dealing with this? This is maybe a dumb question. Were they not dealing with the same hurdles or no?
I mean, some of them aren't even aligning themselves with the state. They're kind of gambling.
They may not have adopted new curriculum aligned with the science of reading yet, because you have the freedom, if you did not want to, you had to adopt a new curriculum. When you adopt a new
curriculum,
it has to be aligned with the science of reading, but you were not mandated to do it right away.
Unless you
your
Unless you
scores
had
were
certain
below
scores.
70%.
Yeah.
Correct. But we chose to move forward with going ahead and adopting Amplify because it was science of reading based.
And I'm going to tell just a fun anecdotal story, just because I think it kind of exemplifies some of what was going on. So we implemented science of reading. Or Amplify is the curriculum we adopted. We're in the process of doing that. I think everybody knows I know Dr. Jenner pretty well. And one night I get a text from Dr. Jenner, and it's a picture of a worksheet. And it says, do you know this worksheet was being used in your school at Yorktown, and someone in your district complained, and it got to a legislator, and it was Elizabeth Rowe, right? And the legislator sends it to Dr. Jenner, and Dr. Jenner sends it to me. I think I sent it to Kelly, and Kelly goes, "That's straight out of Amplify. It's straight out of it was straight out of the curriculum that was one of the 5 that was on IDOE's list." Yep. But yet it circles back around of like, oh, where did this come from? And so with a little humor, I was able to say, well, actually, that's right out of your curriculum.
One of your 5 approved.
There's a lot of people that like to create things that don't look and see the differences and what it's going to do and what it's not going to do, unfortunately, that aren't teachers and know what'll work and what won't work.
And I think a lot of it is just the period of transition. So is this year 3 in Reveal Math?
Yes, year 3 in Reveal Math.
And look at the math scores. I think there's been professional development. There's been buy-in to that, and I think you can see that. And so part of it's just a process.
So we're still sold and Amplify. It's just the ordering of what we do. That makes sense. Okay.
Last year was fidelity. This year is let's work out the kinks from last year. I like that. Yeah.
And I'll say too, everything built a ton. So like my 5th grade teachers may be referencing things that they did clear down in 2nd grade and up. Well, this was the first year for 5th graders. So
they hadn't been taught.
There was all those building blocks that they never heard, never thought. So there was a whole new vocabulary that they were learning at the same time too. So again, not great excuses, but not winning excuses.
And it's a ton of extra work for you guys to do that. I mean, you shouldn't have to do that with a curriculum, but I feel like a lot of schools did go with Amplify, a majority that I know.
I think that was a majority that changed.
And that's a huge one in Florida too, and some of the other states that are moving to science of reading that had a lot more data or years ahead in science of reading.
I just went through the Acadians training, and we had adopted that as something to use to test for a dyslexia screener. And the trainer said, this is absolutely not a dyslexia screener, and you should not be using it. But it's approved. It was one of the ones that was approved by the IDOE. So, we're not sure how we're going to utilize that now, but they said that is not at all what it should ever be used for.
That's the recommended screener bit from the state, but we're using M-Class.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the other thing. So they did M-Class last year, and we jumped on M-Class this year. So they actually got a risen program, so we could afford to go because it does align with Amplify and Science of Reading better. Plus, they're doing it, so it'll be a smooth transition from 2nd to 3rd.
When you're trying to progress monitor students and looking at their data from year to year.
Cool.
All right, let's transition from iLearn to iRead.
Yeah. So to me, this in some ways is the other side of the coin. And we've talked about iRead results before, and you can see, so the state iRead results were just released last week publicly, and our overall iRead results, so second grade and third grade for that cohort, the passing rate is 93%, the state average is 87%. And, you know, one of the things I would say in defense of YES and iLearn scores there is, if we're looking at multiple measures, okay, how do we have iRead scores that are 6 points above state average, but then we're looking at ELA scores in YE that are maybe a little below average. So we want to take a holistic view of where we are. I also thought it was interesting as I gave you the historical scores for Yorktown Community Schools, you know, on iRead 3 going back to 2016, you can definitely see the effect of COVID in there, that our scores were high and basically increasing, and then they've dropped, and we're back now. These are the highest iRead scores that we've had in about 6 years. So we'll just continue to do what we're doing. I think, again, it's required to administer it in second grade now. We've had a lot of success with that. I think that allows our third grade teachers to focus on the kids who need the remediation. We've got a pretty robust system in place to remediate those students. And so we'll continue to work on that. Remember, the state's goal is 95%. So continue to trudge toward that goal.
Well done, really good progress. Okay, let's move on to the business section, item 5A, Dr. Henshaw.
This is really sort of pro forma. Ask you to approve these administrative contracts every year. By statute, their contracts roll unless you cancel them, but this is just to get it in the record for State Board of Accounts as well as their addenda. And of course, this doesn't reflect any change in their contract from last year. We typically don't adjust administrator contracts until after we've settled with the teachers. So I would ask for approval.
So this is renewing the entire contract or just amending part of it?
It is actually just you approving. From a legal sense, you are not required to put these on for approval because they have a right to continuing employment under the statute unless you give them notice of non-renewal. One of the things, to go back in history, Yorktown did not use contract addenda for administrators before I got here. And so part of this is just to verify that the extra benefits that are given to administrators are reduced to writing and that the board has approved it. They have not changed any. In fact, even the amounts have not changed since last school year. Did I say that correctly?
But this approval is to essentially accept your entire contract?
The essentially what you're doing is approving the addendum.
Yeah, Exhibit A is just the addendum of benefits.
They all administrators also sign a regular form teacher's contract. And that is their contract for employment. And the addendum then specifies if they get extra vacation days, if they work extended days. They're not covered by the collective bargaining agreement with teachers. So there are things that are in the collective bargaining agreement with teachers that, in order for us to guarantee them to administrators, they are reduced to writing in this addendum. So it almost serves as like their form of their collective bargaining agreement, but they don't bargain collectively.
So do we approve the employment agreement separately, or is this all together?
Sorry
for the confusion. I read this as just a change.
The employment agreement.
Okay.
The employment agreement, legally, you approve upon initial hire, and if you take no action, it will roll over by statute for the succeeding school year. So sometimes boards, and this used to be this way in Yorktown, that the board used to give administrators an additional year, and so they always kind of had 2 years on their contract. I they're in the room, so I'm going to own it. I have not done that. It would just let the statutory role happen every year. So you have the ability to extend it beyond the statutory rights that are extended to them. And if you're choosing to non-renew their administrative contract, you have to give them notice. I think it's December 1. I'd have to go back and read the statute if you're not going to renew them for the succeeding school year. And some of them, one of them at least, would also have tenure rights under Indiana law. Actually, we would have 2 or 3 administrators who would have tenure rights under Indiana law. So they have a property right to continue teacher employment.
Because I want to say like the first year or two I was on the board, I felt like I got a summary, or maybe we approved it individually, but it would be nice just, honestly, all these, I don't know what they get paid, so I'd be curious, or what their structure is, a summary annually of what all of our administrators outside of the bargaining contract would be helpful. Just
we could probably do that pretty easily. Yeah.
In tenure, all these things would be helpful, I think.
This really, so this, again, this is not a legal requirement, but sometimes when the State Board of Accounts does the biennial audit, they will audit a payroll, and they will ask for proof that the board has approved the compensation and benefits of whatever. I mean, they may just randomly pick a single employee and they will audit that payroll. And so this is an easy way for the business office to point back and say, well, here's Mike Huber's contract for employment. Here's when it was approved. Otherwise, before I got here, I don't think this ever happened, but you would have to reconstruct all the benefits. When I think it was Kara who asked me, no, it was Brooke who asked me something about, do you agree that administrators have to sign a regular form teacher's contract? And I said, yes, they do by law. And then I said, and an addendum. And she said, we don't use an addendum. We don't use anything like that. I said, how do you know what benefits administrators are entitled to? And so this is actually an addendum that I used at Randolph Central that I modified here just for audit purposes.
Okay, thanks, sir.
How about a motion from someone?
Motion to approve the business. Can I do the whole thing?
All
All of them?
Yeah,
Or
you
just the addendums?
Yeah, all we're doing is
As
the
presented?
addendums. Yeah.
There you go. Motion to approve the addendums as presented.
All right. Thanks, Vicki. How about a second? Thank you, Ashley. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you. Item 5B is the annual approval of our enrollment requirements. Dr. Henshaw.
So you'll see the memo from IDOE that basically instructs local districts that they have to adopt a set of residency requirements annually. And I've included those that have been previously approved for your approval if you are willing.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ryan. How about a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vicki.
Enrollment.
Okay, all those in favor of that, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Last item on the agenda is 5C, which is the second reading and adoption of our Neola policy updates, which are primarily, most of those are because of legislative changes. during the
This
last
is actually
session.
the batch before legislative changes.
Okay.
The legislative changes are still on my desk, but yes, the things that have happened in the last year.
Ashley, do you
I
want
was
to
gonna
read?
say, yeah, Ashley can
Yeah, do you
start
want
reading
to read
those
all of
for us
those, Ashley,
tonight.
for us, if you would, please?
No.
Okay, you don't have to. Board, I need a motion to approve those,
Motion
please.
to approve the Neola policy adoption.
Second.
All right, thank you, Jason with a motion, Ryan with a second. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, Dr. Henshaw, rolling to your closing comments.
Well, I want to say, by and large, what I've heard is that we've had a really smooth start to school, and I've heard principals and directors say that. You want me to knock on wood? We're far enough in now that it's all good. And it was referenced in the work session that we started fully staffed and fully licensed, and that is huge. And Tom heard me say this at the opening day meeting, that the appreciation that we have for our staff, I think I said this, I can't remember, but virtually any person who's employed in Yorktown in a certified position could easily go somewhere else and work in the same position. Now, they might not make the same money, they might make more, but people who are here are actively choosing to be here. And that's just a testament to the kind of people that we have, to the administrators that we have, to the environment that's here. And it's quite common when I ask the new teachers, like, so, why, I always say, why did you become a teacher? And I talk that through for a bit. And then I say, why Yorktown? What interests you about Yorktown? And it's very common for people to say, I've been trying to get in here for 5 years, or I've wanted to come to Yorktown for a long time. And so I really appreciate the fact that we're able to do that over and over and over again. And that is to the credit of everybody that's involved. You want to talk about construction?
Yeah, why not?
I went to the Yorktown Chamber meeting this morning, as I do every month, and somebody asked me about it before the meeting even started. So I have not been over past the high school since about 11 a.m., but the shock pad was supposed to be installed as of today, or being installed today. And we had a football progress meeting. We're having one every Thursday, and Jeff Fowler is assuring us that by 2 weeks from Saturday, it'll all be done. So, and he has said repeatedly, once that shock pad goes down and once the turf starts to go down, it'll all happen pretty fast. I did add, Stacy was in that meeting, I said, well, as soon as you get the turf down, we'll send Sean out there to stripe it. And that was a joke. Yeah. It comes pre-striped.
2 weeks from last Saturday or next Saturday?
This past Saturday. There are a lot of other moving parts out there. I think the press box is near done. Was the Lee Company there today? Or was that crew? So the Lee Company is waiting on Fredericks to pour some concrete pads for the ADA ramp on the visitor side, and their sales guy has assured us that when that's done, it will only take them 1 day to finish on the bleachers. So the 25-second clocks were installed on Saturday.
Goalposts came today.
The goalpost came yesterday. I saw that truck. So again, it's coming together. I would love to say I wish it could have been done in time for the scrimmage. I've been around enough construction projects, especially public construction projects, that it seems like schedule delays and cost overruns are the name of the game, unfortunately. But again, progress. The
So
large
is the shock pad in or not?
About halfway.
Yeah, they were installing it today.
Good.
Yeah. And what I was told by Jeff, and I think verified by Brennan and Brian, once they did soil stabilization and they got the stone down with the drainage, at that point, it can rain on it as much as it can be thrown at it and it'll be fine. So the larger project, I've heard tons of compliments on the front office, and there are a few little things that'll have to be done over fall break. Well, one big thing, like the terrazzo, has to be ground down, but they're moved back into their space and utilizing it, and have both of their restrooms online now in the front office. I think there maybe are a few punch list things in science, but for the most part, science is underway as it's supposed to be. I was through the Sports Performance Center yesterday. We walked through there. And so progress day by day. I did ask Brennan yesterday, said, so what is our occupancy target for weight room? And he said probably the equipment will be installed over fall break. So again, continuing to make progress there.
Is there a day, is there a time where any of us could, I don't want to just show up, but could we potentially schedule up?
Yeah.
Anybody who was interested,
Yeah.
just a walk through?
Absolutely.
Again, I could probably secure a hard hat on Amazon someplace, but I'd rather schedule
I think-
it.
Brennan's got it.
I think if anybody wants to go through, I'm sure you could, number one, stop and see Brennan, and he would probably take you through, or let me know, and I would be happy to take you, or Stacy can take you, and if you want to go as a group, we can absolutely arrange for that too.
I'd
So,
personally rather schedule it rather than just.
okay. So I can
Hey,
send out an
come here.
email, and
Okay.
it is going to be very nice and very functional when it is done. I think that is without a doubt. I mentioned this in my memo, but I continue to have some concerns around progress on our roof planning, and so I have reached out to some other people for some info, and I'll keep you informed on that. I mean, the financing side of it is going very well, but just making sure that we have a plan in place that we can execute once we have the financing arranged is something that I am going to continue to focus on. I mentioned earlier in the whole discussion of the tax base and the impact of SEA 1. I don't want to overstate that case, but it is something that we want to just continue to watch and be vigilant about. We're not alone. It's fun to be, maybe it's demoralizing to be with other superintendents and have them all talk about what their circuit breaker numbers look like and the impact of that. And then lastly, news as of today, we got the public announcement of the U.S. News and World Report, best high schools, and Yorktown High School is again on that list in the top 10% in the state. I think the rank was number 37, and that's of all schools, public and private, all high schools in the state, so in the top 10%, and that's been a consistent ranking for Yorktown High School. So just one more piece of evidence of the kind of work that goes on there. So congratulations to Stacy and her staff.
What was there was another ranking maybe you'd sent out a month or so ago. We did very well in that as well. Do you remember that one? Seemed like you
Well,
carved
that
out
was probably
Yeah,
AP,
our AP ranking.
SAT. There is niche.
No,
niche.
it's more like what you're, that it was like, we didn't know how they were
okay.
pulling
That was an online magazine that ranked us
Best schools.
something.
Yeah.
And
For your mom.
that was one. There was even another one.
I think that's the one you're talking
It
about.
was because you like carved out the private schools when you took those
SAT.
out.
Yeah.
SAT results.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Because then
Yeah.
I was talking to you about Liberty Perry and
Yeah.
okay.
We're not
That's-
naming any names here. Yeah. Again, multiple measures, and you've heard me say this before, that I think one test that the public uses to measure the value of Yorktown Community Schools is, where is my student going to go after high school? And as Yorktown High School, and then all the stuff that's vertically aligned underneath that, giving them the opportunity to get admitted wherever they want, or to get into the vocational program they want to get into. And
It was top 10% nationally too.
yeah, that's right.
We got a good bond rating. Thank you.
We did. We had a stable bond rating, and I was a little surprised it wasn't downgraded some just because of our cash position, but it was a good bond rating, so we'll take it.
Mr. Wagner's spreading out soil. Probably he's probably out of backhoe right now. That'll make Ryan happy, right?
I don't know if you guys heard complaints about dirt piles, but I feel like I heard from like 10 people about dirt piles. So like enough.
And
I feel more questions about
Really?
that.
I didn't hear
Really?
anything from me about it.
and the short version is, it was our soil and it was clean fill that we needed, and he has a plan B that if we get to the point where we say, okay, we're not going to need that for a long time, that it can be removed. And the stormwater coordinator for Delaware County has been on site and met with him, and according to Mr. Wagner, blessed his plan. So
Okay.
anyway,
And then you've got a plan to meet with Fred next week?
next week.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
Are you gonna meet with him, or are we gonna need to schedule a work session with him?
It will be Mr. Kelly and Stacy and Paul and me and Brian and anybody we can get from softball
Very good.
during that time, just for kind of a high level preliminary discussion.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I think that's enough.
I agree.
Unless you disagree.
I agree. All right. Thanks, Dr. Henshaw. Appreciate you. Closing comments from board members. I'll start with Mrs. Gillespie.
I don't have a lot to say. Thank you guys for everything that you're doing to start the school year off so well. I know my 3 kids have all been very happy and had a great start to the year, and congratulations on your test scores. They all look great. I know it's not easy with all the changes that you guys, especially in elementary, have gone through with your curriculums and things that you've had to work to accommodate those. So congratulations.
All right, thanks, Ashley. Mrs. Gassaway.
I'll look at that too, but thank you also just for a great back to school year. So the Gasway household has been very happy, and I did not receive any calls this year back to school from angry parents about bus routing or anything like that. So it was, yes, very nice start back to school. Congratulations to our marching band. They did well down at the state fair. It was a hot day.
Yes.
If you're able to see that, as well as it seems like our girls golf team just had a nice victory. So congratulations there. And then just a little heads up, we are still working on creating possibly an ag academy. Mr. Brand has been kind of instrumental behind the scenes also in helping get that started for Delaware County. So, we have a few students that we've been losing to different ag online programs or other schools that they can pursue that pathway. So this will be another possibility for our Yorktown students to possibly participate in. So.
That sounds innovative.
Yeah.
Very innovative. Put that in quotations.
Great job. All right, thank you. Jason?
As always, thank you guys for taking time to attend. Appreciate you being here. Echo what they say. It's been a great start to the school year, at least from my perspective. It seems like the smoothest since I've been a part of the board. So, it's a lot of hard work. So thank you.
Did you have one you missed?
I forgot the Lilly Endowment Teacher Fellowship Grant. A community member sent me a link. That due date is coming up in, I think, the first week of September, maybe, somewhere around in there. So if you have anybody that's looking at doing that teacher fellowship, so get their applications in. I think it's $15,000, I believe, is the payout or grant awardee this year. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Vic. Brian?
Yeah, obviously construction's a headache, so thanks for kind of working through that, and we're getting there. So they're filling a lot of questions to get to the end, but thank you guys for hiring good staff, good teachers. I don't think our kids have had a bad teacher along the way. So actually, one of them might have had one. I think she quit the next year. So I think that's good attrition. But Mr. Brand, thanks for being here. I don't know that we saw any other county commissioner in the 7 years I've been here, and you've been to several. So thanks for spending your time sitting in a meeting and figuring out what's going on in Delaware County. So thanks for being here. So thank you guys.
Okay, thank you. Well, not a whole lot to add. As we wrap it up, I just want to thank our administrative leaders who are here, and thank you to all of you guys for all you do. My granddaughter's a first grader this year, and so far so good. I haven't heard anything but good things from her thus far. She's missing one of her buddies from last year's class, but she's trying to make some new friends. And my daughter-in-law came over today, and so they told her, I said, well, you need to, make some new friends in your new class. And so she ran into Lily, her little buddy from last year at the playground. And she goes, well, my mom said I have to make new friends. So Lily was devastated, and her mom called my daughter-in-law, and she said, no, that's not exactly the message we were trying to deliver. But anyway, it doesn't happen by accident that you have a good start to the school year, and we take it for granted as parents, and I'm sure it's not flawless. And there's, when you restart something that, has been dormant or semi-dormant for 6 weeks, and then you start it back up again, and you've got thousands of kids and parents and all your staff coming back and trying to make it all work. And again, I don't get a whole lot of calls anyway. I'm too old to hear from too many people in our district. But all of these people do, and the fact that, we're hearing nothing but good things is a testament to all of you and your staff. So thank you very much. Steve, Jill, thanks for coming tonight as well too. And Dr. Henshaw, I think we take it for granted. Brian brought up construction, but it feels like we've been in a perpetual construction project for the last 7 or 8 years, because we probably have. And, every time I call Dr. Henshaw or I email him and say, what are you doing? Well, he says, well, I just got out of a conference, a parent-teacher conference, or something going on in one of the buildings. I just left the chamber meeting and I'm going into this, and we take for granted all the different things that you have to do that are part of your regular job, besides being a person that's managing all these multi-million-dollar construction projects that we're adding to our campus. So thank you for definitely
Yes,
leading
thank
that
you.
and for leading your staff and making it work and taking all of our phone calls and emails that come at you. Harem skirm, I think was the term that you used before, so we appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it, folks. We're wrapped. Thanks for coming. We're adjourned. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
They unplugged me.